Hi, so I made a game in 2 weeks. Here is a story time of how I did it. Just after recovering with 2 weeks from COVID, I applied for the Immersive Arts Bootcamp held at BOM, or Birmingham Open Media. This is a 3-week bootcamp of technical workshops, guided learning, and talks provided with industry professionals. It focused on the creative side of technologies like virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and extended reality. Since this was a 3-week course, I'll run through it week by week, and hopefully we will get to the part where I make the game. Week 1 was combined with an event called Open Worlds. It was a 1-week event where it was mainly just talks and mini workshops. It started with the absolute basics of Unity and Blender. We were given a ton of handouts in the first week, and these are just the ones I collected. With Open World sharing the first week of bootcamp, there was a lot of people there, and my socially awkward neurodivergent self could not cope, so I camped up on the mezzanine level in the provided safe space. But there was free homemade food the first week. It was so good. I also borrowed a laptop, just so I had all the files and the software right there and ready to go. But it's also due to the fact that I am a creature of habit and take my work home with me, so borrowing a laptop allowed me just to disconnect when the day is done. It was a way of telling myself, it's time to stop. Set those boundaries. Week 2. This is when the bootcamp really started. First, we did demos, following along, and building our own living room in Unity. We did this one step at a time, as well as learning through creating our own personal projects. We started with building using 3D shapes, then added textures and colour to our shapes. Then moved on to lighting effects. Before adding sound and music, we actually learnt about the Unity Asset Store, and the free resources known as the first person and the third person controllers. The controllers make it feel like you're playing an actual game. It's so cool. During week 2 and the learning process, we had to come up with a premise of our own project of what we wanted to do. And the premise of my game is a little sister gets separated from her older brother, and you play as the sister in order to find her brother at the end of the Crystal Beach. Much like a Spyro level, I wanted branching paths and other little things like collectibles. Obviously, I knew I wasn't going to get everything coded in, but I at least wanted to show proof of concept. You might even recognise some of the characters from my character universe. Pearl and her brother Azuki, as well as Sparrow for the side quest. There simply just was not time to sculpt 3D models for the characters, so I used Ready Player Me, which allows you to create 3D avatars, and then you can download the 3D files. I then used Blender to help convert the file type so it was more compatible for Unity. I did actually try out sculpting in Blender. It was intimidating, but also fun. Also, I never finished whatever I started here. Look at this monstrosity. As for the character animations that Azuki and Sparrow perform, I got them from a website called Mixamo. First major step of making my game was the terrain tools, because you need a plane for the character to walk on, otherwise the character will completely fall right through the floor, in an endless falling death loop as you watch the level disappear above you. Now I could have just used a regular plane in the meshes category, but I had to be extra and use the terrain tool, which, once I started using it, I was heavily side-eyeing The Sims 4 because the terrain tool was very similar to using it in Unity. This might be a hot take, but the Unity terrain tool is superior. I am willing to die on this hill that I have sculpted. The terrain tool in Unity and the sculpting in Blender just makes you feel so powerful. Also, I'm a shy potato that needed to have a non-verbal help system because I am the special kind of awkward that just does not want to talk to anybody. I also have a very naturally quiet voice that is very easily overshadowed by everybody else. So that little star on a stick was needed. Because I hoard everything, I actually still have it. The lady who made this, Chloe, really popped off with her origami skills, just like, I know it's crumpled, that's my fault, but she popped off. I asked Unity expert Taryn to help me add 2D pop-up dialogue sprites. Specifically, these hand-drawn sprites of Sparrow, Azuki, and Pearl. And he was like, you do realise this is a beginner's course, right? I'm sorry, Taryn, my Aries nature has no chill. But there was a compromise, a simpler way of doing it, if you will, and that was to use an invisible trigger with a 3D object. I found out later that the game had to have a purpose. I was just doing this idea because I liked the idea. I thought it was a coherent idea out of my spaghetti for brains. The purpose I came up with is escapism, escaping our reality. Being able to take your mind off of things is very calming and relaxing, and is a huge help mentally. I also found out later that we had to present it to the class, but be proud of me because I did not chicken out this time. By the end of the bootcamp, I was a bit more comfortable around the people there, and even though I stuttered and stammered a lot, I still got through it. And I look back at that moment and I'm very, very happy with myself. So, in terms of my design choices, I went for a crystal beach. I've drawn so many crystals over the years, it is insane, and I had all of my old pieces of artwork in mind when deciding on a theme for the world. Me and the theme of crystals go way back, even before the character universe was even a thing. During college, I actually had a fantasy art project where we had to design a character, we had to design a world, a creature, a weapon, and just everything I had was like crystals, floating islands, the whole 9 yards. I have a sketchbook with all the development in it, and I know that I filmed a video of this particular sketchbook in the past. I just found the video and it's 8 years old. So to save you from watching it, I've just put the footage underneath while I was talking here. Unless you want to trip down memory lane, or just a cringe fest, be my guest to watch the old video, I will leave a link to it. How in the hell is this dragon supposed to fly with gem-encrusted wing flaps? How? I had no sense of logic back then, but the creativity was just out of this world apparently. This course actually reminded me that game art is an actual field that I could go into. I would say the only thing that's really holding me back is the 3D skills, but I am actually willing to put in the time and the effort to learn how to build 3D models. But the Immersive Arts Bootcamp didn't just end with those 3 weeks. Every month, they do an open studio for a couple of hours where you can get technical help on any projects that you're working on. You can also learn new things as well. And I've recently taken up the offer to learn more in Blender. And my first 3D model was of a castle, or like a very low poly castle, just using simple 3D shapes. I am hoping to expand to character modelling at some point, and I do have a turnaround sheet of Loki that I could work off of. Although it was done several years ago, so it might need to be tweaked and updated, but it seems like a fun challenge to try for the future. Now let's walk through this concept of a game. For anyone interested, it's actually available to play on my website. And when I say play, just move the character around the world and see what I've built. That's what it is. I've also just had a lot of fun testing the boundaries of where the character can actually jump and run to. I've managed to actually get Pearl onto the castle wall by running and jumping. It's a lot of fun just testing the limits of this sandbox of a game. And here is Sparrow. I feel so bad because at this point in the timeline where this game takes place, he's been through a lot. And I didn't want to spoil anything in this little demo, but I did want to allude to the fact that he's been through a lot. Is this little demo of a game a bit of a spoiler? Kind of, but it's vague enough to actually not really be too much of a spoiler. I would class this point in the story as part of Sparrow's story, but also a part of Pearl's story as well. And I'm not going to say too much more than that because it would spoil some parts of the Sims series that I want to get into later on. The fact that this game was made with no prior experience of Unity whatsoever, and all of this progress in 2 weeks. The course was 3 weeks, but making this project was only 2 weeks, because of the first week being all workshops and professional talks. It just astounds me that this is the result that I came up with during this course. The world assets were from the Unity Assets Store. They were combined to create a world based on my artwork, and not even The Sims could do that. To me, the world just feels like something out of Spyro the Reignited trilogy, both in style and the way that it plays, which is exactly the vibe I wanted to go for. I hope you like this project as much as I do. It was such an awesome experience, and I'm so grateful for the team at BOM. They were so supportive and incredibly patient with me. I'm gonna let the rest of the showcase footage play out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!